Hello everyone, this is Chidanand from Kratz Infotech NG. Welcome to this tutorial on Jenkins installation and setup on Windows. Just before we get into the installation part, it's imperative that one understands what exactly is Jenkins, what is it good at, and what is the prerequisite for installing Jenkins. Jenkins is a pure automation server which has been written in Java. So it goes without saying that in order to install Jenkins, one would need to have a supporting or a supported JDK version. Apart from being a wonderful automation server, Jenkins in the DevOps world is also one of the most popular so-called continuous integration server. So what does one understand by the term continuous integration? In the agile development methodology, developers are typically committing code changes onto their local machines. So many times, if at all they use a distributed version control tool like Git, Git provides a facility where you can have pretty much your complete code on your local machine. You can do local commits without really pushing it onto the centralized servers. So if there are multiple people working on a particular project, if people do not check in and commit and push the code onto the main repositories, at the fag end of your delivery cycle, when an integration has to happen between the code of all the developers, you have a potential big problem to solve. In order to get rid of this problem, what is recommended as a part of continuous integration process is that developers almost pretty much every day, based upon how big your project life cycle is or your sprint cycle is, either every day or maybe as soon as they finish some good amount of work that can be committed, they're expected to commit and push it onto the centralized server. So from there, the automation server, which is called as the continuous integration server, will wake up based upon whatever trigger that you would want to put in. But mostly overnightly build that happens when after the developers check in the code during the daytime, somewhere middle of the night, 12 o'clock, say, you have a continuous integration server that kind of wakes up, pulls the code from multiple version control tools, and then builds it, compiles it, packages it, runs unit test cases around it. If at all it has to be pushed to, let's say, a static code analyzer like a SonarQube, it will do that. All this in an automated fashion. This whole procedure of pulling the code from the GitHub repository, doing all kinds of checks, and of course, to put out any sort of a problem that may arise in overnightly builds. This whole process is termed as continuous integration. Now, in this tutorial, I'll just quickly show you how to go ahead and install Jenkins Server on my local box, which is running Windows. If one heads over to the Jenkins documentation page, you will find that there is the LTS or the long-term support versions and weekly, which is not at all a recommended build to go ahead and install. And also, Jenkins is available on multiple platforms. In my one of my previous videos, I've shown how to run Jenkins based upon Docker images. If you run it with Docker, all the prerequisites is all kind of bundled into one image. That's one advantage of installing Jenkins as Docker or using a Docker container. I don't want to do that. If for our exercise, I will just look at Windows. Now, if at all you take a look at what are the prerequisites, where there is a good amount of prerequisite on the JDK versions. All right. So now I do not want to install the latest and greatest. I already have whatever I think is a pretty good version, that is 2.375.2. Now, the reason why I'm installing this version is because I have a little older GDK. Okay. Now, if at all you take a look at the path and environment variables on my machine, you have Java home that is set to the version of JDK that is installed, which is JDK 17 on my system. Also, the path, the environment variable called path also points to the JDK bin. So if at all I open up a command prompt from somewhere and just type Java hyphen version. Okay, now just because I don't want to upgrade to the latest and greatest version of JDK, I have a little older one, which is why I would go ahead and install this particular version of Jenkins. Now, if your requirement is some other version of Jenkins, you can pretty much go and download that. But then just ensure that the supporting JDK is also present and installed on your machine. So for me, this is good. So I go ahead and this is the default program file Jenkins. I just want everybody to kind of use Jenkins on my system. Jenkins comes up as a web application which runs on a particular port. 8080 is the default port. If you want, you can modify that, but for me, 8080 is good. Small check whether to verify if this port is available or not. All right, now this automatically picks up the JDK version just because I've set Java home environment variable. If not, you can pick whatever folder where JDK, the supportive JDK is present. All right, I don't want to make any modifications out here. On Windows, Jenkins installs as a particular service. Similarly, on Linux, any other versions of Linux, you also have it running as a service. You can stop and start Jenkins by using the service commands. So this would take a while, but let me just check. Once Jenkins comes up, localhost 8080. Now this is the port on which the application would kind of come up. All right, it's pretty fast. Now, once the page comes up, there is a small check that has to be done. A small file is present with some sort of initial username or rather initial hash code kind of a thing. In Docker also, you'll see the same set of a screen because from now on, irrespective on whatever platform you're installing Jenkins, the screen and the steps would all be the same. So this is a file. I'll just look at this particular file. So if at all I open this file in a notepad, it has some sort of a strange hash code. This is auto generated every time. So let me just copy that and paste it here. So this is to unlock Jenkins. Now, one of the most important thing is Jenkins needs a lot of plugins. The whole power of Jenkins comes through the assorted list of plugins that is present. But that whole plugin word is little complicated. Lots and lots of dependency on Jenkins, and plugins themselves have a lot of dependencies. Now, instead of selecting those plugins, whatever you would need one by one, what is mostly recommended is install all suggested and recommended kind of a plugin. Now, when you hit this, it goes out to all the plugins pages which are hosted on some very slow, kind of servers. And sometimes the plugins may also fail to install based upon the network speed and the mirror site as to how good or how fast they are. Okay, so this would take some time. If at all you see any failures in any of the plugins, you can pretty much try to reinstall that. But then, ideally, you don't want to see any red tick marks anywhere on this particular screen. This again would take some time. So let me just pause the video and come back once all the plugins are installed. It took me close to 30 minutes for all the plugins to get installed. Fortunately, I did not have any failures per se, meaning none of the plugins failed to install. But in case you don't have a requirement where you need all the supported or recommended plugins, you can go and pick and choose whatever plugins that you want. So once the plugins is installed, you get to this page where you're supposed to create your first admin user. Keep it very simple. You can create any user that you would want. Admin 123 is what I like to have, and then a full name would be admin, email address, some email address. It just checks for the regular expression. You don't have to give your email address. Save and continue, and Jenkins is ready. As simple as that. Now, just to verify if everything is okay or not, let me just put up a simple job and pull the source code from one of my repositories, and maybe try to trigger or rather run something that is present in that repository. So I have a small repository here which has got a simple batch file, hello.bat, that is the name of the file, where there is some echo things put out. This is the master branch. All right, it's a simple batch file that is present in this repository. So let me just try to put up a job so that I can pull code from here. Okay, let me just copy this URL, and this is a public repository. All right, so I will just say create a job or a new item right here. I will just call it hello world job. All right, a freestyle job or a freestyle project, that is good. All that I got to do here is provide the URL of my Git repository. Now this is the URL that I've copied. Since the repository doesn't need any authentication, it's a public repository, so you don't have to specify anything. Master branch is good. Um, the build step, after the whole code gets pulled in, execute the batch file. Now I will execute the batch file that is present in the GitHub repository. It's called hello.bat, everything in smaller case, hello.bat. Okay, let me just save this and let me build now. I have the Git plugin which has been installed. I don't want to take any complicated scenarios. Possibly I'll come up with some more tutorials with Maven and other stuff. But out here, I just wanted to show you how to install Jenkins, and just check if everything is okay with all the connections and stuff like that. So out here you will see that I'm in master branch success, and this is where you will find the GitHub repository. Also, it is in the Jenkins work in the Jenkins workspace. You will find this complete repository that has been pulled, and the hello.bat gets executed from well within this particular folder. As simple as that. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my tutorial. I hope you found this useful. In case you need more information about Jenkins, I will leave the links to few of my other tutorials, which probably I recorded with Simply Learn. But then, in case you want any other specific tutorials on Jenkins, kindly leave me a message, and I will try to record them as well whenever I have time. Also, if at all you run into any issues with Jenkins installation, kindly leave me a message as well, and I'll try to fix it as soon as I can. Thank you so much.